Last time we have, good morning students. Last time we have discussed about the concept of density as well as the concept of pressure and hydrostatic pressure. So we already know the equation for pressure. Alam natin that pressure is equivalent to force divided by area. Okay? So ibig sabihin nito, if there is a pressure, then there will be a force exerted due to that pressure. And we can calculate that force as force is equal to pressure multiplied by the surface area. So kapag meron palang pressure, then there will be a force exerted due to that pressure. Now, we also discussed about the concept of hydrostatic pressure. And we already know that hydrostatic pressure is equal to the density of the liquid, L, lagyan ko lang ng L for liquid, multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity, multiplied by the depth of that liquid. Again, take note that is depth. So what does this equation tells us? It tells us that the hydrostatic pressure is directly proportional to the depth of our fluid, of our liquid. So ibig sabihin, hydrostatic pressure increases with increasing depth. Kapag mas malalim, mas mataas yung hydrostatic pressure. Tama? So ibig sabihin nito, dito sa, if at this level, this is H1, lagyan natin, this is H2, for example, H3, and so on. So at particular depth, kapag mas malalim, habang mas malalim, ibig sabihin, magka-increase ang pressure. Okay, nakuha? So kapag mas malalim yung ating liquid, mas mataas yung hydrostatic pressure. Okay, so let us consider an object that is completely immersed. Again, that is completely immersed in a fluid or in a particular liquid. Kapag sinabi kong fluid, this time I am talking about a liquid ha, hindi mo na gas. So let us consider this object, yung yellow, that's the object completely immersed in a particular liquid. So alam natin na since pressure increases with depth, ibig sabihin, at this point, meron tayong hydrostatic pressure dito. Tama? Tatawagin natin pressure 1. Ayan. Meron din tayong hydrostatic pressure at the bottom of our object. So tatawagin natin pressure 2. Okay? Pressure 1 and pressure 2. Since pressure increases with depth, ibig sabihin pala nito, pressure 2 is greater than pressure 1. Nakuha? Pressure 2 is greater than pressure 1 kasi nga pressure increases with depth. Now, as I've told you, if there is a pressure, ibig sabihin there will be a force. Okay? So, mayroong force yan. So, ibig sabihin dito sa taas, there is a force exerted per unit area. So, mayroon tayong force per unit area, F1. Dito sa baba, meron din tayong force per unit area. Tatawagin natin yung F2. Okay. So since mas malaki yung pressure dito sa bottom kaysa sa pressure sa taas, then it follows na the force at the bottom, at the bottom of our object, F2, should also be greater than F1. Dapat, F1. Dapat mas malaki pala yung force ni F2 kaysa sa force ni F1. Okay? So ano mangyayari kapag mas malaki yung force ni F2 kaysa ni F1? Ibig sabihin, there will be an upward force. Kapag mas malaki yung F2 kaysa kay F1. So magkakaroon tayo ng upward force, net upward force. Okay? Magkakaroon pala tayo ng upward force because of that. Upward force. And that upward force is what we call the buoyant force. Ayun. Tinawag natin yan na buoyant force. So kapag sinabi natin buoyant force, that is the net upward force exerted by the fluid on an immersed object. Ano ang cause ng buoyant force? Ang cause is the difference in pressure. Okay? So yun, that's the buoyant force. Yun yung upward force. Now, how are we going to quantify the buoyant force? So let us call buoyant force as the upward force, FB. Buoyant force. So how are we going to quantify buoyant force? Because remember, in physics, we always quantify things. Dapat merong quantification. Meron dapat numbers na mag-describe for that particular quantity. So, paano natin i-quantify yung buoyant force? Alam natin that buoyant force, okay, buoyant force is just equal to the force at point 2 minus force at point 1. Tama? That's the net buoyant force. F2 minus F1, yun lang. That's the buoyant force. However, alam din natin na the formula for force, ito. This is the formula for force due to pressure. Okay? So, ibig sabihin pala nito, this is pressure at point 2 multiplied by the surface area, yun, this is this equation. 2 yan kasi that's F2 minus pressure at 1 multiplied by the surface area. Okay? So, yan na yung equation natin. Buoyant force pala is due to the pressure difference. Ayan. Okay, so we can manipulate our equation further. Based on this equation, tingnan mo yung equation natin for hydrostatic pressure ito. Hala, hydrostatic pressure pala is density of the liquid multiplied by G multiplied by H. So, ibig sabihin, we can substitute this equation dito sa equation kasi may pressure. Ayun. So, buoyant force pala is equal to the density of what? Of the liquid. Take note ha, that's the density of the liquid. L yan, L. Multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity. L na, the capital L na lang di. Capital L. Okay, basig malipat mo sa L o sa 1 ba? Multiplied by H. H, this is the height, the depth of the first dito sa first point. So H1, tatawagin natin itong H1. Okay? Multiplied by the surface area minus the same pa din, the density of the liquid multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity multiplied by H2. Ito na yung depth ng ating second point sa bottom. This is H2. Multiplied by the surface area. Ayan. Okay? So we can actually factor out kung ano yung common sa ating equation. So buoyant force, ano ba yung common sa equations natin? Common yung density of the liquid. So density of the liquid, common yung acceleration due to gravity. So acceleration due to gravity, labas. Common yung area. So area. Yung H hindi common. So that means H1 minus H2. Ayan. So H1 minus H2. Okay? So now, ano yung makukuha natin if we will subtract H2 and H1? So hanggang dito yung H2, hanggang dito yung H1. So if we subtract H2 and H1, we will get the height of our object. Tama? Height of our object. So ibig sabihin, our equation will become what? Our equation will become buoyant force is equal to the density of the liquid multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity multiplied by the area multiplied by the height of our object. Okay? Yun, height of our object. So ito yung equation natin. Ayan. So liquid yan ha. This is height of the object. However, ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng area times height? Ito. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng area times height? Area times height is actually the volume. Tama no? That is actually the volume. So ibig sabihin our equation for buoyant force, the final equation will be the density of the liquid multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity multiplied by the volume of the object immersed. Okay? That's the volume of the object. Take note of that. That's the volume of the object immersed. Okay, so ito na yung equation natin. Final equation. Saan po ito? This is already our final equation. So dapat dahil no, black dahil sa taas pa. So i-black na ko ha. Wait lang. I-black sa na ko ni. Di pa hindi siya final na equation. Pointer. So this is FB is equal to the density of the liquid, acceleration due to gravity, area times height of the object. Ayun. Okay, so however, when we will immerse a particular object in a particular fluid, ano yung mangyayari sa fluid natin, sa level of water? If for example, meron akong meron akong liquid dito, may water, and then I will be immersing an object. Lagyan ko dito ng object yung water. Ano yung mangyayari sa water level? Di ba ang water level kay mag-increase? We call that the displacement of the liquid. So displaced object. So for example na ako'y container, and then ako'y liquid ray. Na liquid na. And then I have an object. Ito. Now I am going to put this object into this container filled with a liquid. Ano yung mangyayari sa water level or liquid level natin? Ang mangyayari is it will increase. Tama? It will be displaced. Okay? So for example, this is 3 cubic centimeter. So ano yung mangyayari sa displace? Ano yung volume ng ma-displace? 3 cubic centimeter. Pareho lang. So kung ano yung volume na ilagay mo dyan, that is also the same as the liquid na ma-displace. Pareho lang sila. Okay? So this equation, this can also become buoyant force. Buoyant force is also the density of the liquid multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity multiplied by the volume of the displaced liquid. Ayan. So, pareho lang yung volume of the object immersed and volume of the displaced liquid. So either, kung volume of the object ang binigay, yun yung gagamitin mo. But sometimes, ang ibibigay kasi, yung displaced volume of the liquid ang ibibigay. So pareho lang yan sila. Okay? Okay. Pero ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng density of the liquid times volume? Ano ba yung density times volume? Ano yung ibig sabihin ng density times volume? Density times volume is the mass. Tama? Pareho lang yan siya sa mass. So, ibig sabihin pala, we can also define this buoyant force as buoyant force is equal to the mass of the liquid displaced. Again, displaced multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity. Okay? Pero unsam ng mg, sir? Diba ang mg, sir, is weight? Pareho na diba ng mg og weight? Yes, very good. So that's the definition of buoyant force. Okay. So what is buoyant force? Buoyant force is the upward force. Base dito, that's the upward force. Equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces. Ayun, that's based on this equation. Equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces. Okay, that's the definition of buoyant force. So either of the three, pwede yan na definition sa buoyant force natin. Okay, now we can also define buoyant force in terms of the weight of our object. So buoyant force is equal to the true weight. Sir, ano ang ibig sabihin ng true weight, sir? Ang ibig sabihin ng true weight, that is the weight of our object when it is on air. Again, that's the weight of our object when it is on air. Okay, so for example, if I am going to weigh this object, I will hang it and then get the weight of that object when it is on air. So kagaya nito, it is on air. So that's, yung makukuha ko is the true weight of my object. Okay? Now, if my object will be immersed in a particular liquid, Ang tawag natin doon is the apparent weight. Nakuha? Apparent weight. So kindly watch the video demonstration on the laboratory experiment on buoyancy and na-explain doon ano yung ibig sabihin ng apparent weight. Pag sinabi nating apparent weight, that's the weight of our object when it is immersed in a particular fluid. So for example, i-immerse ko itong object sa water, manotice mo na gagaan ng object. Nakabantay mo na nga mugaan ang object kung imong ibutang sa tubig. Ano man. Because that fluid exerts an upward force. Ayun. So, di ba mugaan siya? That weight of your object when it is immersed or submerged in a particular fluid is what we call the apparent weight. Okay? So, ano yung apparent weight? That's the weight when it is immersed in a particular fluid. In this case, pag sinabi nating fluid, that I am referring to liquid. Okay? So, ayan. So, ito lang yung equations na tatandaan natin. 1, 2, 3. Ito pwede din. Ayan. Pareho lang naman sila, 4. Okay? Ayan. So, let's have an example. Suppose the mass of your friend is 62 kilograms. So, that's the true mass of your friend. And he displaces 0.25 cubic meters when completely immersed in the swimming pool. What is his apparent weight when immersed? So apparent weight, naka-immerse na siya sa swimming pool. So remember, kung maka-immerse ang isa ka-object sa swimming pool, what will happen to its weight? It will decrease. Napansin niyo na? Later, ipakita na to ha. Ano yung mangyayari. So meron tayong mass of our object. So since that is mass on air, tatawagin natin yung true mass. Okay? True mass. Kasi later, that will be called true weight. So 62 kilograms. Yan. And he displaces 0.025. So that's the volume of the displaced liquid. So volume, pareho lang. So that's volume 0.025 cubic meters. What is his apparent weight? The average density. So density of the swimming pool or the chlorine water is 993 kilograms per cubic meter. So yan yung density ng ating fluid, particularly chlorine water. Okay? Okay, now ang kailangan natin is ano ba yung required? What is the apparent weight? So ang hinahanap natin is the apparent weight is unknown. So balik lang tayo doon sa equation. Ano ba yung mga equation natin? We have buoyant force is equivalent to density of the liquid. Take note, that's density of the liquid multiplied by G multiplied by the volume of the object or liquid displaced. Pareho lang yan sila. Or second equation, we have buoyant force is equal to true weight minus the apparent weight. Ayan. Okay? Ano yung gagamitin natin na equation dito? Ang gagamitin natin is ito because ang hinahanap natin is the apparent weight. So yung second equation lang naman yung may apparent weight. So we are going to use the second equation. Buoyant force, FB, is equal to true weight minus apparent weight. Take note, when we talk about true weight, that's the weight of our object on air. Apparent weight is the weight of our object when immersed in a particular fluid. Take note of that, ha? So check natin, i-manipulate muna natin ano ba yung equation natin for true weight. Equation natin for true weight, just manipulate the equation. Ang equation natin magiging apparent weight is equal to buoyant force, is equal to true weight minus the buoyant force. FB pala yung buoyant force. Pero some books uses B as symbol or variable for buoyant force. Sa atin, FB. So, FB. Okay? Ayun. So, diba? Dalira, no? Dalira ka. Ayun. So, let's calculate our apparent weight. So, true weight. Paano natin ngayon i-solve yung true weight? Ano ba yung equation natin for true weight? Remember, that's weight, hindi yun mass. Walang mass, sir. But you know that weight is equivalent to the true mass multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity. Tama, no? That's weight, di ba? Mass times acceleration due to gravity man ang weight. Minus buoyant force. May buoyant force ba tayo dito? Wala again buoyant force. But we know that buoyant force based on this equation is equal to density times G times volume. Tama? So check natin kung kompleto na ba. Meron ba tayong true weight? Yes, check. Meron ba tayong acceleration due to gravity? Check. Meron ba tayong density ng ating liquid? Take note, this is density of the liquid. Check. Yun, density of the liquid. Meron ba tayong acceleration due to gravity? Check. And meron ba tayong volume? Meron ba tayong volume? Yes, check. So that means we can use this equation. O, di ba? Dali ra kayo. So true mass is 62 kilograms multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.81 meters per second squared, minus the density of our liquid is 993 kilograms per cubic centimeter multiplied by 9.81 meters per second squared, multiplied by the volume, which is 0.025 cubic meters. Okay, so 62 times 9.81, 62 times 9.81 equals, that is 608.22 Newton. Take note, how many significant figures? Dalawa. So hanggang dito lang. Minus, how about this one? 993 times 9.81 times 0.025. That will give us 243.53325 Newton. Tama ba? Grabe. 993 times 9.81 times 0.025. 240. Ayun. How many significant figures? Dalawa. So hanggang dito lang. So dalawang significant figures lang. So subtract 608.22 minus 243 point something. And that will give us 364.68675 Newton. Hanggang dito lang. Okay, so ilang significant figures ang kailangan natin? We only need 2 significant figures. Hanggang dyan lang tayo sa 6. Hanggang sa hanggang sa 10th place lang. So our final answer, apparent weight is equivalent to 360 Newton. Okay? 360 Newton. So ano yung nangyari? Anong nangyari sa weight? Okay? Ano yung nangyari sa weight natin? If you notice, yung true weight ng ating object is 608 or 610. Pareho lang kapag i-round off natin. Nagiging 360. Okay? Paano mag-make sense? Minsan kasi hindi mag-make sense ang Newton, no? So para mag-make sense siya, we can get its apparent mass. Okay. Kasi meron tayong true mass, pwede rin magamit yung apparent mass. Paano? So i-convert lang into mass, divided by 9.81. Divide 9.81. That will give us approximately 37 kilograms. Ayun. Hala, so 37 kilograms na lang imuhang friend kung maka-immerse sa swimming pool. Okay, para mag-make sense lang. So ibig sabihin, from 62 kilograms, when your friend is on air, naging 37 kilograms when your friend is immersed in swimming pool. Okay? Kapag ka naka-immerse sa swimming pool. Kaya pala, if you notice, kung kay friend na alsahon bitaw mo sa swimming pool, magdula-dula mo sa mga friend, di ba, ma-feel mo, hala, mura gaan lagi. Gaan lagi ako ang friend. Why? Because of the buoyant force exerted by that fluid cord. Okay? Or any object na immerse on a particular fluid, i-immerse mo siya. Di ba, maka-feel ka nga, hala, gaan lagi siya. Okay, gaan siya. So that is what we call the apparent weight. So gagaan yan because there is a buoyant force. There is an upward force. So puro ka ginatulak upward ba? Ginatabangan ka sa fluid pushing upwards. Tama? Okay. I hope naga-make sense siya. Okay? Again, the relationship between buoyant force and density are directly proportional. So ibig sabihin kapag mas dense yung isang object, ano yung mangyayari sa ating density? Ano yung mangyayari sa ating buoyant force kapag mas dense ang isang fluid? Ibig sabihin mataas ang buoyant force. Okay? So for example, nabigay ko na ba 'to na example? For example sa 'di ba last time I've given you an example sa chlorine water that's 993 kilograms per cubic meter. This is sa chlorine water sa swimming pool. Sa seawater is 1,025 kilograms per cubic meter. So saan sa kanila yung mas mataas yung buoyant force, yung upward force? Mas mataas yung upward force sa seawater. Okay? Mas mataas ang upward force sa seawater kaysa sa chlorine water. That is why, as I've told you before, mas madaling lumangoy sa seawater kaysa sa swimming pool. Okay? Kasi mas mataas yung buoyant force ng seawater. Okay? I hope I am making myself clear. Doon sa Dead Sea, di ba? Dali na kayo makalutaw dito sa Dead Sea. Because of the direct relationship between buoyant force and density. Okay, let's have another example. Bargain hunter purchases a gold crown at a flea market. After she gets home, she hangs it from a scale and finds its weight to be 7.94 Newton. She then weighs the crown while it is immersed in water, and now the scale reads 6.86 Newton. What is the density of the crown? Compare this value to the density of gold, which is 19.3 times 10 to the power of 3 kilogram per cubic meter. What conclusion can be made of the crown? So again, there is an object immersed in what? Take note kung saan siya gi-immerse. That object is immersed in water. Okay? That object is immersed in water. So our fluid is water. Nakuha. So ang fluid natin is water. So sulat natin lahat ng given. She hangs it from a scale and finds its weight to be 7.84 Newton. What is that 7.84 Newton? That is our true weight. Yan. That is our true weight, 7.84 Newton. And then she weighs the crown while it is immersed in water. So it is already immersed in water. So that is our apparent weight. Okay? Apparent weight, which is 6.86 Newton. So just take note that the apparent weight is less than the true weight. An apparent weight is less than the true weight always. And now the scale reads 6.89 Newton. What is the density of the crown? So again, this is immersed in water. So ibig sabihin yung density na kailangan natin is the density of water. So hindi pala nabigay dito, no? But meron naman tayong table for the density of water. Okay, and we know always na ang density of water is 1,000, standard yan, kilogram per cubic meter. So 3 significant figures tayo ha. Ako na lang 3 significant figures, B. Eraser. 1.00 times 10 to the power of 3 kilograms per cubic meter. Ayan. So that's the density of water. Water ha? Bakit water yung nilagay natin dito? Because it is immersed in water. Okay? Now, ano ba yung hinahanap natin dito? Ang hinahanap natin is the density of the crown, the density of the object. Ayun. So ang hinahanap natin is the density, anong kulay? Black na lang. Ay. Ano ta diri? Black. So ang hinahanap natin is the density of the object. Take note ha, density of the object natin. Now, we want to compare that sa density ng gold. Kaya yun mo siya gold. So gusto natin mabalaan kung gold ba yun. The density of gold is 19.3 times 10 to the power of 3 kilograms per cubic meter. Yan. Okay? Take note, ang hinahanap natin is density ng ating object. Ayan. So, balik tayo doon sa equations natin. Kung meron ba tayong magagamit na formula for the density of the object. So, alam natin that buoyant force is equal to the density of the liquid. Take note, liquid times acceleration due to gravity times volume of the object. Tama? Volume of the object or volume of the displaced liquid. Or buoyant force, FB, is equal to the true weight minus the apparent weight. Okay, yan yung mga equations natin. So if you notice, tingnan mo lang yung sa equation. May magagamit ba tayo? Density of the object ang hinahanap natin. Hala, baka kasi ito yung gagamitin mo. Hala, walang density of the object. So paano natin ngayon isolve yung density of the object? Wala namang density of the object. Balik tayo doon sa other equations. Ano pa yung equations natin for density? So alam natin na density is equal to mass over volume. Tama? Alam natin yan. That density is equal to mass over volume. So if this is density of the object, this must be the volume of the object. Okay? Mass of the object rather, and this should be the volume of the object. Okay, so yan. So makukuhaan pala natin yung density kapag meron tayong mass ng object. Check muna natin if mayroon ba tayong mass ng object. Is it possible kaya na kaya natin isolve yung mass ng ating object? Mass is related to weight. Tama, no? Mass is related to weight. So ibig sabihin, kunin ko lang yung dapat may weight. Ayun, check. The true weight. So wag yung apparent weight, yung true weight. Nakuha? So pwede natin makuha ang mass. Pwede ko pala makuha ang mass. How about volume? Pwede ko ba ma-solve ang volume ng aking object? Pwede ba? Ayun, hala. Pwede ba ang volume? Yes, pwede ko ma-solve ang volume. So ibig sabihin, kailangan ko lang pala isolve yung volume ng aking object. Nakuha mula dito kasi mayroong volume ng object. Okay? So that means we can use this equation pala in order to solve for the density of our object. Nakuha? So ganun mag-solve ha. Balik ka agad sa equations. Okay? So unahin natin i-solve yung volume. So volume, alam natin that density, pero yung given true weight and apparent weight. So ito na lang yung gagamitan natin na equation. So we have density, buoyant force is equal to true weight minus the apparent weight. Bakit? Kasi yan yung given natin sa values. Yan yung given, oh, yun. True weight and apparent weight. Now, buoyant force, alam natin na that is equivalent to this one. So density of the liquid times acceleration due to gravity times volume of the object is equal to true weight minus apparent weight. Okay, so ano yung kailangan natin again? Ang kailangan natin is ang volume. Take note, yun yung kailangan natin ng volume. So divide both sides by the density of the liquid times G divided by density of the liquid times G. So cancel, cancel. So that means volume of the object is equal to true weight. What is our true weight? That is 7.84. 84 Newton minus 6.86 Newton divided by the density of the liquid. Density of the liquid is 1.00 times 10 to the power of 3 kilograms per cubic meter. Take note, baka ito yung ma-substitute mo na density ha. Liquid yan, liquid, hindi yan yung metal. Times acceleration due to gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared. Yan. So that will give us what? 7.84 minus 6.86. That will give us 0.98 Newton divided by 1.00 times answer divided by 1,000 times 9.81. And the volume of our object is 9.9898 times 10 to the power of negative 5. The unit for volume is divided by, wala pa rin ako na divide. Sorry. Eraser. Wala pa din ako na divide, diretso ko og answer. That's 1,000 times 9.81. Sig malibubog. That is 9,000 9,810 Newton. Ay, Newton. Takara ko unit. It's not Newton. Sir, anong unit niya yun, sir? Wait lang ha. Okay. So, check natin anong unit. So, cancel yung isang meter. Cancel yung isang meter dito. So, kilogram per square meter. Then, second squared. Duha na lang nabilin ka na may meter sa taas. So this will give us what? This will give us 0.98 divide answer. That will give us 9.9898 times 10 to the power of negative 5 cubic meters. So that's the volume. Now, how many significant figures? Pila? Duha lang. Kaya dalawa, duha. 1, 2. So 2 significant figures hanggang dito. Mahimong 10. So round up, magiging 0, magiging 10. So it is approximately equal to 10 times 10 to the power of negative 5. Okay? Cubic meter. Yan. Okay na? 10 times 10 to the power of negative 5. Round off naman mo. So we already have the volume. So meron na tayong volume of our object. Next is, ano pa yung kulang? Kulang natin is mass. So dali lang man ang mass, tama? So solve natin si mass. Ito, this is for the volume. So i-solve lang natin si mass. Or pwede rin i-diretso good. Diba? Density is equal to mass of the object divided by volume. How to get the mass of our object? Just divide, diba? Mass is equivalent to weight divided by acceleration due to gravity, tama? O man equation sa mass. So we have 7.94, 84 rather, Newton divided by 9.81 meters per second squared. And that will give us 7.84 divided by 9.81. That will give us 0.79918 kilograms. 3 significant figures hanggang dyan lang. You may pwede round off, pwede din hindi. Pareho lang yan ang sagot later. So density is equivalent to 0.799 kilograms divided by the volume. Ano yung volume natin? Volume of our object. The volume of our object is 10 times 10 to the power of negative 5 cubic meters. So 0.799 divided by 10 times 10 to the power of -5. And that will give us density is equal to 7,990 kilograms per cubic meter. How many significant figures? Dalawang significant figures. So that means our final answer dapat dalawang significant figures lang din. Asa tong red ito na. Density is equal to hanggang dito, so round up ay 9 man na, so mahimo 0, so 8,000. 8,000 kilograms per cubic meter. Two significant figures, lagyan ng bar ang isang 0. Or pwede din scientific notation. So 8.0 times 10 to the power of 3 kilograms per cubic meter. Ayan. So anong ibig sabihin natin? Compare natin ito sa gold, sa density ng gold. So yan daw yung density ng ating object. Now, if you notice, ang density na nakuha natin is 8,000 kilogram. Yung density ng gold is 19.3, which is not equal to 19.3 times 10 to the power of 3 kilograms per cubic meter. So anong ibig sabihin nito? Is it a pure gold? No. Hindi yan siya pure gold. It's either hindi siya pure gold or gold siya pero hollow. Ano ibig sabihin ng hollow? Yung may spaces sa gitna, kagaya nito, hollow space. So hindi siya solid. So it could be an alloy, hindi siya pure gold, or it could be a hollow crown. Okay? So yan yung ibig sabihin natin.